Has the course of true love ever run smooth? Ever? In a single instance? Where two people fall in love and they stayed in love and they lived happily ever after? Has that ever happened? I was sort of wondering about that for no good reason, just wondering, when someone mentioned Aphrodite and her lover Adonis. And I thought, wow, there you go. Aphrodite and Adonis. What a couple they must have been. I mean, they were gods. Maybe a couple of gods could fall in love and stay in love and live happily ever after. I figured I should check that out. As was the case with many of the gods, Aphrodite, or Venus, has several different origins. In one, she is created out of the sea foam, the way she is pictured in the famous painting by Botticelli. But it isn't just sea foam that made her. Kronos, I think, is a titan. If Kronos is time, as I think he is, then he is certainly a titan in my book. Kronos had some kind of trouble with another titan, Uranus, or Uranus. A few years ago, one of our space probes was passing that planet and sending back pictures, so it was in the news and TV anchors were busting their ever so presentable chops not to say Uranus. They'd say Uranus. Anyway, Kronos must have been terribly pissed at Uranus, who, I have since learned, was his father, because he cut off his genitals and tossed them into the sea. Probably why they called him Uranus, because that's about all he had left. And that's, combined with the sea foam, created Aphrodite, who is the goddess of beauty and love and sexual pleasure. The story was a bit of a stretch for some, so another, more tame, has it that Aphrodite is the child of Zeus and Dione. And of course she was very beautiful, the epitome of beauty, and Zeus, her dad, was worried that this could cause jealousy and possibly strife among the gods when it was time for her to wed. So, taking matters into his own hands, as the head of the gods was wont to do, he arranged a marriage between Aphrodite and Hephaestus, the blacksmith, a misshapen deity who produced the implements of war in his forge, Vulcan. Naturally, Hephaestus, or Vulcan, was overjoyed with this match made in heaven. Aphrodite was not nearly as pleased, and she took it upon herself to have other lovers, as you might expect from the goddess of love, chief among them Ares, or Mars, the god of war. What she saw in Ares, I'm not sure. The allure of his dark, daring nature, a lethal attraction to be sure, or maybe he was hellfire in the sack. In any event, there is Aphrodite, and now we must account for Adonis. She was, in a way, intimately connected with him from the start, even before he was born. The king of the island of Cyprus was proud of his daughter. He thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and he said as much. Then he went overboard, as kings are wont to do, and announced that this daughter was even more beautiful than Aphrodite. That did not sit well with the goddess, who turned the daughter into a tree, a myrrh tree. But the daughter was pregnant. There may have been some incest between the proud king and his beautiful daughter, and 9 months later that tree gave birth to a child, a son, Adonis. He grew to be an exemplary man, an eye-catching icon of good looks. Adonis. He divided his time between Persephone and Aphrodite, who was his lover. He was killed by a wild boar sent by, well, there were a number of suspects, each with ample motive. Artemis, god of the hunt, and of course Ares, always up for a kill. Aphrodite rushed to him when she heard his groans, and Adonis died in her arms. There are tales that had her going to the underworld and convincing Persephone to bring him back to life for part of the year, but even with that ending, it's easy to see that the life and love of Aphrodite and Adonis was hardly a case for what could be called a smooth course. In fact, it was rocky from its inception, sporadic in nature, and destined for a brutal and fatal end. And if gods and goddesses can't share true love, then what hope have we mortals?